Welcome back. Jury deliberations continue this hour in the sex trafficking trial for Ghislaine Maxwell, but the Omicron variant looms over the completion of this trial for the longtime associate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The judge warning jurors to clear their schedules to deliberate over the holiday weekend until they reach a verdict. If convicted on all 6 counts, Maxwell faces up to 70 years in prison. Let me bring in CNN legal analyst Paul Callan for more. Good morning, Paul. Great to see you. Judge Allison Nathan told attorneys she wants to avoid a mistrial as a result of this variant. They're worried, I think, about jurors getting sick and being out. What do you make of where we are? I mean, more than 10 questions have been submitted by this jury that has been deliberating for more than 6 days now.
That's an astounding number of jury questions. I can't remember another case through the years where a jury has sent so many questions back to the court. Usually, they've given up by that time. By 5 or 6 questions, they can't reach a verdict, and they're begging the jury to declare the judge to declare a hung jury. This is a hard-working jury. They're obviously working hard to reach a consensus. And my sense, Poppy, is that you probably have an entrenched minority of the 12 jurors, maybe 3, somewhere in that range. It's got to be 2 or 3 to be able to hold out against the others, who are saying this should be an acquittal. Whereas the majority is saying this should be a conviction, quite possibly a conviction only on limited counts, not all counts. But I think that's how it's playing out at this point. Entrenched minority holding out against the majority. How
likely is a mistrial when you have a jury deliberating for this long, sending in this many questions leading up to the holiday? I think they weren't even supposed to convene tomorrow and Friday, but now maybe they will.
It's very unusual. Normally, I would say you're almost definitely going to have a hung jury and a mistrial. But I've never seen a jury so intent on reaching consensus. They're asking for notebooks. They're asking for highlighters. They're obviously, each side of the dispute is trying to convince the other side and doing it in a very rational way by presenting testimony, contradictory testimony, to get the other people to come around to their point of view. So it sounds like maybe this is a respectful discussion of the issues among jurors who are struggling to reach consensus. So I think it's too early to say it's actually going to be a hung jury.
The judge also heard arguments from attorneys about a defense request to send the jury clarifying language about counts 2 and 4. This is in response to a note that the jury sent on Monday of this week asking about count 4 related to accuser Jane's activities in New Mexico. The judge denied the request. What does it tell you about sort of perhaps some of the biggest hang-ups for this jury? Because there have been other requests in these questions that the judge has granted.
Well, it's very strange to me that the court refused to re-instruct the jury on those questions. Now, normally when a jury sends a note to a judge saying, we need re-instruction on something as basic as 2 of the counts in the indictment, some judges will just bring them back in and reread the original instruction that was given and then send them back out. Now, because you have to understand, the judges have books of approved instructions that have been upheld by the appellate courts, and they're very careful about the instructions they give to the jury. So the fact that this judge refused to re-instruct them on 2 counts is very surprising to me. And by the way, it might be a point on appeal if there's a conviction.
What about how COVID and the Omicron variant, especially here in New York, plays in to all of this? I mean, clearly this judge is worried that if any of the jurors get sick, what happens?
It plays into every trial going on across the United States, and the courts have been struggling with this to try to get the court system up and running again. And yes, if one of those jurors becomes infected with COVID, you could have a disastrous situation, and you could have a lengthy trial ending in a mistrial. So this judge is trying to get the jury to work hard, reach consensus to avoid that.
They wouldn't deliberate from home?
No, I don't think. I've never seen a case where that has been permitted. You know, it's interesting that you asked that question, because in a lot of court proceedings now, we're doing them by Zoom conferences,
right,
or Cisco conferences, or, you know, we're using all different kinds of video software to do it. And the appellate courts have said that's okay. I have never seen an appellate court say, okay, we can let the jury deliberate from home via video. The problem with that would be that the jurors would be too susceptible to interference by family members and others trying to influence their decision. When you have them, you know, in a room being guarded by court officers, it's different. You can make sure that no improper influences are being brought to bear.
Yeah, of course. Paul Callan, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Poppy.